Hey y'all, Ethan back at it with another lesson on the topic of fire. So today we'll be talking about fire and how it plays a key role in our past, present, and future. Fire, just like geology, has a huge influence on life itself. Let's start off by looking at the sun. The sun is a big ball of fire. In simple terms, much more complex than that. Most plants need the sun to survive, whether they get scorched by it or they get a little sliver. Plants are primary consumers. In result, going up the food chain help primary consumers get all that yum yum. And then going up another tier, we find us, the secondary consumers. Unless you're vegan or vegetarian, you're a primary consumer. Good for you. So, this big ball of fire in the sky helps us live. All hail the sun. Okay, let's ground ourselves. Let's bring it back down to Earth, okay? How has fire on Earth impacted our lives? So we're gonna go way back like we always do, and we're gonna talk about how fire has evolved with us. So fire was doing its thing way before we came into the picture, okay? Imagine the stoke we had when we finally harnessed it. We had our first campfire, and then all of a sudden we have warmth at night. We have light in the dark. We have this power, this entity, this flame that we stare at and we lose ourselves into. You know, that's pretty incredible. This is a huge pivot point in the development of who we are today. So a huge part of our identity as a human today is the capability of our brains. And you know what we all owe that to? The simple act of cooking our food. And you can't do that without fire. So cooking your food does so much to it already. But let's just focus on one of those aspects. And one of those aspects is it's pre-digested. So if you're eating pre-digested food, you don't have to spend a whole lot of energy converting it into usable energy. An 800-pound gorilla has to eat like 8 hours a day to sustain itself. If we can pre-digest our food and use less energy, we can eat less and get more out of it. So what do we do with all that time we have now? Just like today when we're all sitting around, we explore, we develop new relationships with our family, our friends, we learn new things, we develop languages, we discover new areas, new tools. All that stuff played a key role in where we are today, having time on our hands. Fast forward thousands and thousands of years, and we start to notice the benefits of fire on the landscape. Those benefits that we noticed was that after a fire would creep through an area, it would actually make it more productive. But how does that work? So now I'm going to start focusing on our home, the Santa Lucia Mountains, the ones that we stare at from any direction that we find ourselves in the Monterey Bay. Specifically, the indigenous cultures here, the Esselen, the Costanoan, and the Salinan tribes would set fire to these mountains. And long before we came here, these mountains were also very prone to fires because of their geology. High peaks, dry climates, lightning, you got yourself a fire. So we started noticing that when a fire came through, it would be more productive afterwards. And the reason why is because it would hit the restart button. It's like your room's getting all cluttered. What do? You clean it. And then you have more room for activities. You're just more productive. It was a rebirth. New plant growth would happen. Those primary producers would attract primary consumers. And then there we are. Secondary consumers coming into the show. It'd be pretty ignorant of us to think that we were the only ones that evolved with fire. Everything did, especially in these mountains when fire was very prevalent all the time, including the redwood. With fire playing such a key role in the development of these organisms and ecosystems, fire needs to still happen in order to keep it thriving and healthy. And with today's orders and practices, those fires are becoming less and less frequent. And what that does is build up fuel and create these high intensity fires that these organisms and ecosystems are not adapted to. Fire suppression didn't really start till the 1800s. Indigenous cultures still practiced making the land more productive, setting fire to the land. But then the settlers started to get a little worried. Their livestock and their developments were under threat. So they started making it illegal to set fires. Time goes on, fire's cool, fire's not cool, regulations, all that stuff. Now we have the National Forest Service coming into play, and with them they brought very strict fire regulations. So as the decades move on, all of a sudden it's the 1970s, and we have a buildup in certain places of 70 years of fuel. The reason why it's a bad thing is because with all that suppression, we're seeing high intensity fires now. In a landscape that evolved with frequent low intensity fires, and now we're shifting over to less frequent high intensity fires, that's a very drastic change for a lot of organisms in these ecosystems that aren't suited for it. Old growth forests, specialized ecosystems and organisms are disappearing because of these megafires due to our actions and our suppression. So what's the future going to look like? How are we going to evolve with fire? That's the question. Just keep in mind that there are professionals out there who know how to deal with fire and to follow those fire regulations implemented by the people higher up. They know what they're doing and they're doing the best that they can. So be safe with fire and listen to those regulations and stay safe out there.